Welcome back. We are live for Hits and Hoops, episode 10. Crazy that we have the 10th episode right after the draft. It's like it lined up perfectly. I'm Tom Stakes, Big Nish, joining me here to chat a little bit of everything when it comes to football, when it comes to basketball. We got it covered. Big Nish, you just watched a huge, colossal Sixers win. I mean, it felt like the series depended on it. And they come out, they got this win out. Did the series depend on that game? Or was it over if they didn't win that game?
Yeah, I thought if they didn't win at least win one game in Toronto, the series would have been over. The Sixers might have won maybe one game at home, but then they would have been done in 5. So this was a huge win. Jimmy buckets, he showed up like he's supposed to in the clutch.
Yep.
JoJo, he got a big bucket to extend the lead to 3 and then they got a huge defensive stop and they won by 5, 94-89. So it was a pretty big win. They started off pretty slowly and then they started catching fire on offense and playing really good defense against Kawhi, even though he dropped 35 points during the whole game. But the Sixers, they played with tenacity on defense. They got that win, coming back to America, going to Philly, and gonna need to have that raucous crowd behind them to hopefully at least get it split at home and take the series back to Toronto 2-2. So,
is that your prediction, or do you think they would have a chance to go sweep in Philly and get it to 3-1?
I just think, honestly, I would love for the Sixers to sweep at home, but I just think Kawhi, he's just going to pull his team to a win, either in Game 3 and Game 4. We didn't talk about this because we had a gap, but we weren't able to talk about the series. But I think the Sixers are going to win in 7.
Okay.
They've showed that they can win in Toronto. So,
yes, yeah. They have. They absolutely have. And yes, he's referring to the fact that we skipped a week of the show because the NFL draft was on. We wanted to give it time to run. So we kind of are late into these playoff series now. That's a crazy prediction, Sixers in 7. I have the Raptors going to the finals. So I'm not going to reveal my picks till after. I'm not going to say if I changed them or not till after we cover it. So the Bucks and the Celtics are the other series, and the Celtics come up with a huge win in Game 1. They look like they belong. Their defense, that's how they're built. Their defense and their coaching is what makes the Celtics a great playoff team. And then now they have Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving back in the lineup to give them that much-needed playoff experience. I mean, they still went Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals with LeBron last year. Now they have their veteran guys back. They are better than the 4 seed. In a playoff series, the Boston Celtics are a problem just because of their style and the way they play. And I'm on record saying I wasn't really impressed with the Celtics, the way they were playing against Indiana, but that's just how the Celtics play. They're gritty, they're tough, and they scraped the Bucks yesterday. Giannis didn't do really much of anything, and that's the league MVP. So tip my hat to Brad Stevens and the Celtics, because they really killed it. And then there's a West series, Golden State and Houston, and then one starting tonight is Denver and the Blazers. And Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, they're looking to go to the Western Conference Finals. They want the Golden State Warriors. I personally think Denver's going to win. Who do you have winning the Denver Blazers series?
That was a tough one. I'm not a huge fan of both of these teams. I didn't watch them throughout the year, but I'm going to say Denver because they obviously they're the 2 seed. They had a better season than the Trailblazers, and I just think whoever gets out of that series are not beating the Warriors. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I have the Warriors beating the Rockets. They won yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about the controversial calls, arguing over whether or not the Warriors were closing out on threes and landing in the landing space of James Harden and of Chris Paul. And my take on that is that I don't think they were landing in the landing space. I think those players were kicking their legs out a lot and trying to make contact. And yeah, that's going to work every once in a while, and it might be a little bit cheap, but you're going to get it to work every once in a while. You just can't complain when it doesn't work. It's just they might miss a call because you're doing that too much, and that's just how it goes. So to me, you can look at any team and you get bad calls from both sides. It balances out, and the Warriors came out and won the game yesterday. Kevin Durant is on fire. He's the best basketball player on the planet right now. He's going just so crazy every game. Other guys aren't really playing that well around him, and he's just able to just dominate. And it looks easy when it's not. And he's just been a man on fire, and I'm enjoying watching it. I don't care what the haters say. I'm a big KD fan. I love his game, and he just dominates. So that's the guy that's gonna try to do this three-peat with this squad, and I think he's going to do it. So I still have the Golden State Warriors winning the championship and the East team. I'm going to still stick with Toronto, as much as it pains me to say. The matchup is what it is. But I said it early in the season. I said it the first week of the season. Toronto was my pick. Sixers made moves. I could see the Sixers, those moves they made. They give them. They're legit. They belong. I would love to see the Sixers Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. That would be must-see TV. But we'll see what happens. I really do think the Sixers can win, but we'll see. Is your finals prediction? Since I think you had picked Toronto in a prior show, are you changing that to the Sixers, or is it going to be the Celtics or the Bucks?
I don't like changing my picks, but I just think the Sixers seem to have a toughness, and they showed it tonight. And I don't think they're going to get to the finals. I think they're going to play the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Celtics just have the Sixers number, even though the Sixers beat them the last meeting of the regular season. So I just think with Kyrie and everybody, Kyrie knows how to get it done in the big moments. He did that in the finals against the Warriors. So I just think it's basically I see the Celtics team as the same team as the last year of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Everybody, they didn't have the Cavs. They didn't have a good regular season. People were saying, "Oh, LeBron, he's done. He's not going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. He's not going to beat the Raptors, who were the 1 seed. He isn't going to beat the Celtics." He ended up getting out of the East and eventually got swept by the Warriors. I just see the same thing happening with the Celtics. Like, they know how to flip that switch. They're gonna get to the finals, but they're also gonna lose to the Warriors. So
I like that. I like the fact that we can understand that there's teams in the league that change and evolve, and it's okay to shift around what you think is going to happen, multiple times. Because to be completely honest with you, no one knew that Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler were going to end up on the Sixers. You know what I mean? No one knew that was going to happen. So when they got those two players, things could change. Things change. Players get hurt. No one thought Victor Oladipo was going to get hurt, but he did, and that changed the Pacers. So there's a lot of different things that can happen, and things evolve, and picks can shift over time. And I really wouldn't be surprised to see a team like the Sixers or the Celtics go to the finals. They've matured over the season. They've added players, whether it be from outside or getting players back healthier throughout the season. And they're just becoming one of the better teams right now and peaking at the right time. And that's a lot what the playoffs is about. So, rolling right into the draft. I mean, that's another big thing that happened. Being live, we don't really have good transitions. We can't cut the video or anything, so we kind of just have to jump from one topic to the next. But we covered the playoffs, so I'd say that the NFL draft is always a big time for sports fans. It was in Nashville. Did you get to watch any of it? Because I watched the whole thing, and I watch it every year, and it's pretty awesome. So, what do you think?
I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole first round up until the Eagles pick. Then I turned it off. And then like Friday, I did the same thing. Waited for the watch up until the Eagles picks, and then I turned it off. Same thing on Saturday. I watched like the ending of the draft, but I like watching the draft coverage, especially on NFL Network, because they do like a really good job. They have a bunch of different like analysts who cover the college game as well as the NFL game, and they like see which players can go, which team needs players, and like I enjoy that. And there's you get like when you get into the later rounds, you get all these like different alumni from the teams like announcing the picks. So I really enjoy that, and yeah, I basically watched the entire draft, and it was fun.
Yeah, I love watching the draft every year. I'm watching, whether it's just kind of background noise, but yeah, I stop when the Eagles are up. But I glance up every once in a while. I'll be doing something else, and the draft's always fun. But early in this draft, it was all about quarterback movement. What quarterbacks are coming off the board? How's that going to affect things? And that was a big theme of it early in this draft. I thought it was interesting that they go number 1, Arizona takes Kyler Murray. Number 6, the Giants take Daniel Jones. Number 15, the Redskins take Dwayne Haskins. And then the Miami Dolphins send a second-round pick to the Arizona Cardinals for Josh Rosen. And that's 4 new starting young quarterbacks, most likely for the teams that they're on. And, 2 of them headed to the NFC East. 2 guys that, I'm sorry, Eli Manning, he's going to be trotted back out there, and Daniel Jones will work in. But eventually, these are guys that are going to take over their teams, and 3 of them could start this year. Josh Rosen in Miami, Dwayne Haskins in Washington, and Kyler Murray, obviously, in Arizona. So I think we'll definitely see Murray. I think Haskins will win the job, and Rosen's the best quarterback on that roster. So 3 new young quarterbacks starting. Who do you think out of those guys will have the best season?
I'm gonna say Arizona because I like what they did in the draft. They obviously got Kyler.
I just meant the quarterbacks. The
quarterbacks.
Yeah. Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen, Dwayne Haskins. Say they all start. Yeah. Which one of them do you think is going to have like the best season?
Kyler Murray.
Cool.
Because he got speed and he can. He has a nice deep ball, so he'll be throwing to. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. No, we all know Kyler Murray's athleticism, his arm. He's got all the tools to be a playmaker in the NFL from the jump because of the ability to run, the ability to move around and make plays with his arm and his legs. He has a really good arm for a small guy, but he's got a baseball arm and he just can whip the ball downfield. And then he's got some weapons over in Arizona. They'll do good. I'm pulling for the Cardinals. I want to see Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray. I want to see him figure it out. Give him some competition. A more established team like the Philadelphia Eagles. Now they could use a little competition in the NFC. You believe that their offense is stacked. I believe that they had one of the best drafts. But before we get into the Eagles, we're going to talk a little bit about drafts around the league and which ones we liked more than others, less than others, whatever the case is. Draft I really liked was the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts had a great draft. They added speed. They added talent. They added to a unit that is so important when you have an offense that can put points on the board, and that's their defensive secondary and their defensive front seven. They added Rock Ya-Sin. They traded back into the second round, out of the first round, to add Temple alumni cornerback. Little bias here, but Rock Ya-Sin. And then they added Ben Bonnigu from TCU. And then they added Paris Campbell, wide receiver from Ohio State. Those were their first 3 picks. You added speed to your offense, and then you added to a unit that's going to need that toughness and that ability up front. You got Ben Bonnigu, and now you have a running mate for Rookie of the Year last year on defense, Darius Leonard, and then you added a couple other inside linebackers as well late. I think what Indianapolis did was awesome. I think that they addressed exactly what they needed, but also got great players. It wasn't like they were reaching on, just a player that, just because they needed him. Temple cornerback Rocky Ya-Sin is going to be a really good player for them, as well as Ben Bonnigu, and they didn't have to use first rounders. They traded back, picked up some assets. So the Colts are heading in the right direction. They got Andrew Luck, and now they're building a young defense, and still adding weaponry. So that was one of my favorite drafts. I liked a lot of them, but that was one that stood out to me. I like what the Colts are doing in Indianapolis with Frank Reich. They're getting things right down there. And I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about one of your favorite drafts.
So one of my favorite drafts was the Baltimore Ravens. With their first pick, they got Marquise Hollywood Brown from Oklahoma.
That's your boy.
Yeah, that's my boy. I wanted the Eagles to draft him, but they didn't, so I'm okay with that. They added speed to the wide receiver with Michael Crabtree not being there, John Brown not being there. They then added another wide receiver in the later rounds, Miles Boykin out of Notre Dame. He had a pretty good combine. Yeah. So they're adding another speed receiver to help Lamar Jackson throw the ball down the field, because last year it was mostly read option and throwing it to Mark Andrews, the tight end of the Ravens. And then I think in the 5th round, they picked up guard from Oklahoma, Ben Powers. I watched a lot of Oklahoma football for the past 2 years, and I would say he's on one of the best lines in college football. So that's going to be that's like an underrated pickup. I don't think he's going to start soon. He'll probably start in the next couple of years, but they're teaming him up with his previous Oklahoma running mate in Orlando Brown, left tackle. So hopefully they'll be able to, create some stability on the line. And like I mentioned before, the receivers help Lamar Jackson throw the ball downfield instead of hitting on those short routes and basically not keeping the defense honest, and him taking unnecessary hits when he's running the ball down the field. So that's the draft I like the most.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And you didn't even mention Justice Hill, who's a running back out of, I believe, Oklahoma State. Check him out. He's really good. They got him. And I like the Ravens a lot too. That's why, because I looked at their picks. I looked at everyone's picks, and I'm glad you picked them, because I didn't even see the script when you wrote that. And I was like, I'll just trust seeing what he says. And it's cool because I remember we did a draft preview when the Combine came out. We did a little Combine overview episode. And we talked about Miles Boykin and Ben Bonnigu as two of the guys who were really good in the Combine that no one was really talking about because other guys kind of stole the show, like DK Metcalf with his time. And but Miles Boykin was on the team that you mentioned, and Ben Bonnigu was on the team that I mentioned as our favorite draft. So some of that carryover there from us just kind of doing our homework on guys and just kind of knowing what's going on. And those two picks were big in those teams getting one of the better draft classes that people are talking about. I've seen chatter. I've seen a lot of people saying Baltimore had a really good draft. A lot of people saying that the Colts had a really good draft, and building those teams. So one of the worst drafts, I think, that I would say my least favorite was the Detroit Lions. They pick a tight end in the first round in the top 10, number 8th overall. TJ Hawkinson out of Iowa. And I'm not saying the kid's not going to be a talented player. I think he's going to be good. But I'm just telling you, when you're a team like the Detroit Lions who needs help on the offensive line, who needs help on the defensive line, you shouldn't be spending top 10 picks on luxury positions like that. You just shouldn't be. There's a reason this team just never makes it far. They haven't won a playoff game, I think, since the 90s or something. It's insane. They continue to make the same kind of mistakes. And then in the second round, they take some linebacker from Hawaii that, again, I'm not saying is not going to be any good. I'm just saying that you have to be smarter when you're drafting for positions that mean more to your team. You had Ed Oliver and Christian Wilkins sitting right there. You didn't take them. You took a tight end. And you started taking defensive ends late in the draft. Ezekiel Ansah's gone. And you start taking defensive ends late in the draft rather than spending an early pick on one. I thought it was terrible. I I don't get it. And then on top of that, you have Matt Patricia, a defensive-minded head coach, and you're bringing in a tight end in the first round, the top 8, rather than getting him a stalwart defensive player like Ed Oliver, who could be like an Aaron Donald type force if he channels it and gets the right coaching. He could be one of those Fletcher Cox, Aaron Donald type players, and they take a tight end. I was mind-boggled. I saw T.J. Hawkinson mocked to the Detroit Lions in so many mock drafts, and I was like, no, I respect. I have too much respect for the Lions as an organization to think that they're going to make this mistake again. I'm going to give them a chance to redo the Eric Ebron pick right here, right now, and they take T.J. Hawkinson. I couldn't have been more shook up about that. I was furious. I'm getting furious right now. Someone's a GM, and I'm sitting here on YouTube, and I know better than this. Come on. Who was your one of your least favorite drafts? I'm done ranting about this. We play them, blow them out now because of that stupid pick.
I would have to say the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, they drafted Nick Bosa out of defensive end out of Ohio State. That's like the only – I was looking over their draft, and that's like the only big player they got, like impact player. Like they need weapons. They don't have any weapons on offense. They need somebody for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like this is like a proven year for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Yeah. They've been 3 years together. They were projected to make the playoffs last year, or at least do well last year. Jimmy G gets hurt in the 3rd game of the season. It kind of like the wheels started to fall off after that. Like they needed to have a good draft. They had an okay free agency. They got guys like D Ford and I forget somebody else. I'm blanking on somebody, but they just didn't do anything well in the draft. Like this is your opportunity to get guys in the middle round, some diamonds in the rough, get them. And I watch college football a lot. Whenever I get a chance to watch it on Saturdays, I watch it, and I didn't see any impact players. And in the NFL, you need impact players to make it to the playoffs, go far in the playoffs, and win the Super Bowl. They haven't been good since the Jim Harbaugh era, where they made it to 3 straight NFC Championship games and made 1 Super Bowl appearance. Like, what are they doing in the Bay Area? Both those teams, the Raiders and the 49ers. Like you said, if I keep on going on about them, I'm just gonna get frustrated when I don't need to get frustrated. So
fired up. We're both fired up because these teams, you're right, Kyle Shanahan and them. There's always talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and all this, and the guy gets hurt, and I get that. The Eagles have a quarterback that has been hurt, but it is a make or break year, and the Niners, I don't know. Every offseason that goes by, I feel like they don't really make much happen, and they got Tevin Coleman in free agency. That's who we were forgetting.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Tevin Coleman. But these are kind of complementary pieces. They don't really have the meat and potatoes. They don't have, the glue players that are going to hold the thing together. And I think they're kind of searching for that. And Kyle Shanahan, he might be in a little over his head, especially in that division with teams like Seattle and Los Angeles Rams. It's looking like a year where you could see the 49ers start to make some integral changes to that team if they don't at least challenge teams. And then Arizona out there, they just grabbed Kyler Murray, and there's a lot of excitement in that building. So the 49ers are looking like they got to put up or shut up and see if who's going to stick around on that front office and that stuff. So I like that. If you
think about their offense, after I say this, I'll leave it at that. The only person to have on offense is George Kittle, the tight end. Like you can't always rely on them because defenses, they're gonna take them up, they're gonna double team him, and they're gonna make those other guys force to beat them. And you need weapons. We thought this was Carson Wentz in his rookie season. All we had was Zach Ertz, and he was injured. And we had guys like Dorial Green-Beckham and Jordan Matthews and Nelson Aguilar. Now, in the 17 offseason, we got Alshon, we got Torrey Smith, we got LeGarrette Blount, and we got some pieces on defense, and we kind of we built through the draft with Derek Barnett and Sidney Jones and all these guys, and teams need to know that you need to do well in the draft and in free agency if you want to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yep, and that's, like you said, that's what the Eagles are doing. That's what the Eagles have done. They are at the point where we can wrap up this draft class finally and chat about it, because they're done the draft. They've got all their undrafted free agents in town. A couple gems there. I'm already kind of seeing names, so I'm just gonna let the analyzation keep coming. But speaking of analyzation, I love the video of Jeff Stoutland. I know you might not have seen this because you're not on Twitter. You can go on the Eagles website and find it. Jeff Stoutland breaking down Andre Dillard film, and he's just so excited about the guy. And our offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, one of the best in the game, if not the best in the game, has produced a crazy offensive line. He gets a tool to work with here in Andre Dillard. Big kid, great athleticism, and great head on his shoulders. Really hard working. I really like that about this draft class. They got 3 top guys they're offensive players, and they're hardworking to the max. They love football. They love working with the team and just playing the game. So who was your favorite pick of the 3 picks? I know I mentioned Andre Dillard already, but you can kind of chat about the other 2, and then let me know who your favorite one was.
So like you said, I hit 2 picks that I like the most. Miles Sanders, running back out of Penn State. We needed a running back. We got Jordan Howard via trade, but we needed somebody else. Now we got our guy, Miles Sanders. It's going to be a 1-2 punch with him and Jordan Howard in the backfield. So we won't be relying so much on Wendell Smallwood if he makes a team, Josh Adams and Corey Clement. We got our back for probably for the next 10 years if he's good enough to stay on the team. And then one pick that kind of surprised me was the Eagles drafting JJ Arcega-Whiteside out of Stanford University. He's like an Alshon, like he said in his press conference. He's an Alshon type of receiver. He's not going to beat you with speed, but he can basically post the cornerback up and steal the ball away from him. Like I saw multiple times when he played against teams in the Pac-12 like Oregon and Washington, he'd always like I said before, like he would post up the defender like he was playing basketball, and he was take the ball in the air and score a touchdown. So, that helps the offense a lot. You got him, Alshon, Deshaun, Nelson Aguilar, and Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. Like, you have so many great positions on the field who can take, it's gonna defensive coordinators are gonna have a hard time preparing for this offense, because if you take away Deshaun, Alshon's gonna get his touches. If you take Alshon and Deshaun, Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are gonna get his touches, and then you have JJ, who he's gonna get his touches in the red zone, and then you have to think about the running backs as well. You can't. It's not like in previous years where you can just you can stack the backfield, not the backfield.
Stack the box.
You can't stack the box anymore because we have multiple weapons that can slash through the defense. And this might be a bold prediction, but you know what? I'll save it to the end of the show so people can be put on the cliffhanger to see what I'm going to say.
Yeah,
I just love this draft. Like, I was like really surprised. We went offensive heavy. Usually we go defensive heavy in the first few picks, and then we start to go offense. But I think Howie Roseman, he listened to the fans, and he got what we needed. We got a JP replacement. We got a running back. We got a wide receiver, and yeah, I enjoyed this draft, this Eagles draft class a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked it. I loved the Andre Dillard pick. I was banging the table for Jason Peters' replacement for the last few years now. And then Miles Sanders, obviously a running back that I really liked out of the draft. Quick guy. He has speed. He has ability to make defenders miss. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He really is a three-tool back, and I think he's going to develop into a great one here in Philly. Jordan Howard is going to be a huge piece for us this year, and I'm going to love that duo. And then you add Arcega-Whiteside into that receiving core with three guys in front of him that are already going to be better than him and on the field more than him. So anything he can really add is a bonus for this year and just continue to develop. And he doesn't have to be rushed. It's not like we need JJ Arcega-Whiteside to be our second option on offense. We also have the two tight ends that you mentioned in Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. And it really does come down to, the quarterback. Does he stay healthy or not? And I think that the additions on offense just kind of reassure not only the quarterback, but the team that, hey, look, we want to punish teams on offense. We think we have an elite offense with an elite quarterback, and we're just going all in every single year with this team and adding pieces that are going to make immediate impacts and also help for the future of the team and primarily help the quarterback. He's been the guy that needs a lift lately. He's been injured. He's been, given 2 out of his 3 years that he played, he's been given an offense that wasn't really complete with, all the pieces that you need to fully thrive as a quarterback in an offense. And the first year was his rookie year, and the second year was his third year. And when we did give him that offense, when the Eagles were able to build a team around Carson Wentz that had that deep threat, that had a run game, he was in there looking like an MVP. So it feels good to say it again that we have 2 running backs that are just going to be studs. At least Jordan Howard's the proven one out of the 2, and then Sanders is a guy that's going to come in. You have a complete receiving core. You added Whiteside to that, Arcega-Whiteside, and then you added young talent to your O-line. So you have depth there. You also have, a guy coming back from an injury. So adding to that offensive line was never going to be a bad decision. Invest early in that thing. We got a really good pass blocking tackle. So I love how it rounded out our skill groups and our offensive line. Really just added some meat to that offense, just well needed, just some youth, just a little youth punch up in this early first round. And then they added Sharif Miller and Clayton Thorson, quarterback, to many surprise. But I think you always have a guy in the pipeline there. Now you got Sudfeld and Thorson. I feel like Thorson's kind of going to be like a Mike Kafka, where he's just never going to be that good. He's kind of what he's going to be as a third quarterback. And then you have Sharif Miller in there, Penn State defensive end. So you got a couple PSU guys and Sanders and him. And I think they had a nice draft. I mean, the first 3 picks are awesome. I like you were saying, Whiteside's able to go up, get the ball. I think he's really deceivingly quick too. Deceptively quick. I don't know. He really has some good foot speed for a guy his size. He's about 6'2", 225. So he's a big guy, and he's going to have a lot to put on that frame. And he's going to be, like you said, like an outside receiver like Alshon, but he can also play inside. And I think that's something that Alshon doesn't really do. He's more just exclusively outside. And I think JJ is going to help, give different looks when Nelson's in there or Nelson moves around. Nelson moves into the backfield. They're going to have some plays like that. You have 4 receivers that can probably play NFL downs, given JJ Arcega-Whiteside being able to play his rookie year. And I think that's another thing is you're going to see all 3 of these guys play this season. Who are you most excited out of the 3 guys to see get on the field for the Philadelphia Eagles this season, their rookie season?
I would have to say Miles Sanders because, like I mentioned before, he's going to be a 1-2 punch with Jordan Howard. So he's going to get the most playing time. I don't think, depending on what happens to Jason Peters, if he actually stays healthy for like 16 games, then I don't think Andre Dillard, he might play, but it'll probably be in like goal line packages or trying to get the first down on a fourth down conversion.
when Jason Peters gets injured, which happens very often.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Dillard could play because it's unfortunate, but Jason Peters, he does not stay healthy. He'll come.
Yeah, he hasn't stayed healthy for the past 2 years.
Yeah, and I think Dillard is the guy that's going to win the backup job over Big V. I think they're going to put Dillard in and get him real reps in game. He'll probably get smacked around a couple times, but he'll have some good plays, and he's going to have to grow and learn. So I'm excited to see him, but I like Miles Sanders as well. I've really been getting into J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. At the pick, when they picked him, I was like, man, I never heard of this guy. Like, who is this? Like, I saw him in a couple like mock drafts and on a couple big boards and stuff, but I never really looked into him. I just didn't recognize the name. I never heard of the guy. I heard of A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, but West Coast players, I don't know. It's like just being from the East Coast my whole life, I usually look at like the school, like, I don't know, like West Coast players, I feel don't really get that kind of love. I'm like, this guy's really good. When you watch him on the tape and stuff, you can see he's good for a guy that size, good hands, contested catches. I mean, everything you'd want in a receiver that, you know, you have a quarterback like Wentz who just slings the ball downfield, and you want a guy that's going to go up and make the play. And even getting Mac Hollins back might help us with a little boost or something. But you know, I think we have just a good, well-rounded receiving core because of this guy. So I'm really excited to see what kind of ideas they have for him his rookie year, because, you know, he'll get on the field. Guys are going to be rotating in and out. I just want to see what he can do in the NFL, see if he makes some of those big catches. So that's my guy. But we'll, you know, I think we wrapped up the draft pretty well, rounded up everything pretty well. And I think the Eagles did a really good job. And for closing points, I'm going to let you fire yours off because yours was already halfway out earlier. So let them know what you think is going to happen this year.
So, like, we've been talking the past couple of minutes about the Eagles draft and how I think if everything revolves around Carson Wentz, if he can stay healthy, but if he stays healthy, this Eagles offense can be it could be the best offense in the NFL. You know, so many weapons at wide receiver, running back, and tight end. And, you know, it just comes down to the defense, you know, like in 2017, them getting crucial stops at moments when we need it. And if everybody stays healthy on offense, I think the Eagles, they will be going to Miami to play in Super Bowl 53. I just love this draft so much and everybody that they got. It's just like, it's just reassuring to us, the Eagles fans, knowing that, you know, we're not just going to sit on our laurels from 2 years ago when we won the Super Bowl. This team, this whole front office head coach Doug Peterson, down to the players, this team, they want to get better. You know, they want, like I mentioned before, if that pass does not bounce off of Alshon Jeffrey's hands, we beat the New Orleans Saints, we scored that touchdown, we go into LA, we beat the Rams, and we're heading to the Super Bowl to play the Patriots again. And this team is just too good. I don't know why people are hating on them. They're just like, I don't know, maybe it's because deep down they know Carson Wentz is a pretty damn good quarterback. They just don't want to see him succeed because they know he's better than their quarterback when healthy. And I'm saying that to Cowboys Nation. I know I haven't been on Twitter for a long time, but I know what they're saying. I know probably what Giants Nation is saying and Redskins Nation. But even though the Cowboys won the division last year, they only won it because basically our whole team was injured. That's the only reason they won it. If we were healthy, we would have won the division easily. And this team, I think we're going to turn into one of those Patriots dynasties where, like, you know, we didn't win it last year, but I think we're going to win it this year. And then the year after that. And this team is just going to be a dynasty. Like,
I like it. That's a very bold prediction. I love it. I love the draft class too. 100%. A lot of people out there talking about Carson Wentz, his injuries. But like you said, given the health of Carson Wentz, I think that the team will withstand any type of punch anyone throws at them, and they'll get through the season and into the playoffs. Now, big thing that happened, like you said, in 2017 is that we got crucial defensive stops and crucial defensive plays. It's very rare that just one quarterback, can carry a team just by himself. Even quarterbacks that, like Brady and any quarterback, they get those into those games that are close. NFL games are generally close, and their defense comes and makes a big play or makes a big stop. And we didn't have that in 2018. We didn't have consistent quarterback play either, but we didn't have a defense until the end of the year that was making those stops to help win games. The quarterback's job is to put the offense in position to win the game. The defense's job is to eliminate another team's chance at coming back into the game. We obviously all know that. And the Eagles had leads, and they blew them. They wouldn't have blown them in 2017. The defense was too clutch and too savvy at the end of games, and just in big situations, they didn't let that stuff happen. And it looked really, really demoralizing to see that in 2018. But the way they bounced back showed character. I expect Wentz to be better. But even if he is inconsistent the way he was in 2018, this year, if he's even just inconsistent like that, the team is still good enough to lift up and go on a playoff run. And that's what you look for. We don't need to rely on one guy. The Eagles don't need to be a team that takes pride in relying on one guy. You see where that got the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. For the longest time, Drew Brees was in New Orleans going 7-9 every year, 8-8 every year, because that team wasn't good enough. And until you surround your quarterback with the right pieces and the defense can come together and win games as a team, which we've seen them do before, the Eagles will be a great team. And I think that that's what you need. It's not just going to be about Carson Wentz. And I know that's the big topic of discussion. Like you said, Cowboys fans are talking about it. The analysts are talking about it. Can Wentz stay healthy? Yes, health is the question. But you've seen worse quarterbacks with great teams go further than great quarterbacks with bad teams. So even if Wentz is just an okay quarterback, which we've seen evidence to say otherwise before, but let's just say he is just okay, like he's inconsistent, he's streaky like 2018. This roster is still good enough to play with a streaky quarterback that can go for 3-4 touchdowns in a game and then have a big blow-up game in the next game, or just an okay game. I mean, we look at an okay game from Carson Wentz, like 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. We're like, oh, man, he was just average. Like, the Eagles can win games with that now. They're going to add 2 rushing touchdowns because they have real running backs. That they're gonna make bigger plays on defense because they added more depth to that D-line. They have 3 Pro Bowl potential defensive tackles. So they have more added to this team, and I think you're going to see a more well-rounded team. You're going to see a better Carson Wentz. But even if Carson Wentz is just, whatever, he's up and down here and there, the Eagles are still a playoff team, no doubt about it. This team is ready to unleash. I think they have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, and I'm right with you. It is Super Bowl or bust, my friend. It's got to be. We're going to say it every year because this team is really legit. It's all about how they go about doing it. I really think so. And you got to be smart. You got to play smart and have what it takes. But all these players coming off injury. We didn't even talk about the re-signing of Timmy Jernigan that Howie Roseman executed on draft day. Well, this guy signs Timmy Jernigan a few hours before the draft, and D tackles galore. Ed Oliver, Christian Wilkins, Quinnen Williams, they just fly off the board in the top 15 easily. A bunch of D linemen, and Howie Roseman locks up his guys. Best GM. He put this team together. I'm all in. Fly, Eagles, fly. What do you say?
All in? Super Bowl or bust.
Well, you heard our message, guys. We sent it hot after the draft. We feel so confident in this Eagles team. They got their backfield completely covered with 2 great players. They got their wide receiver core built out. They got Carson Wentz healthy. They got their young tackle of the future. This team means business. Their defense is coming back strong. Nothing else to say but Super Bowl or bust. Follow me on Twitter @TomStakes. Big Nish will be back soon.
I'm actually gonna be back. I'm coming back tomorrow night. I'll be jumping back on social media at 12 a.m. So
Okay.
yeah,
Coming back tomorrow night. Big announcement at the
yeah,
end of the episode.
yeah. Just gotta.
Coming back to Twitter
It
tomorrow.
was like just watching the draft. It was just like because in previous years I would always be like scrolling through my phone, seeing if any leaks, and I could just had to. It was just painful just sitting there and just like waiting for everything to come. And it was like, what?
It was cool. I put my phone down for a few picks because I wanted to see him live, but no, it was fun getting the leaks and talking about it and stuff. Big news, Big Nish back on Twitter. Follow him at Big Nish 20. I'm
Yep.
at Stakes. We got Branded Sports here, Hits and Hoops. We'll be back next week with another episode, man. See what these NBA playoffs are going on. See, what's going on with the NFL. If anything else happens, never know. There's still some players' names floating around in trade talk, so we'll have to see what happens. Maybe teams are starting to be willing to trade next year's draft picks already for some of these quality names that are out there. I'm Tom Stakes yet again. Big Nish.
Yep.
Again. Episode 10 is done. Come back for 11. It's going to be a good one. We'll see you then.